you're in a space that is very crowded. How do you stand out from day one?
Just make it as easy as possible, make it as fast as possible, and have a very simple business model. I think that the quicker you take action, the quicker you get started, the more you'll thank yourself down the line.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Hey, awesome people. Welcome to Bootstrapped Stories, the only podcast where founders of Bootstrap companies share in all transparency the ups and downs of their journey. Starting a business comes hand in hand with loneliness, the pressure of not being successful, and overall, lots of challenges. After meeting with hundreds of entrepreneurs in the past years, I figured out that we all have struggles and make lots of mistakes when building a business. But the truth is that most people are afraid to share this publicly. That's what motivated me to start this podcast, to show that we're all on the same journey, facing the same struggles, and to give energy to all entrepreneurs worldwide to continue their adventure. Even if sometimes it can be really challenging and we often feel like giving up, in the end, it's all worth it. My guest for this episode is Christopher Gimmer, CEO and co-founder of Snappa. Hey, Christopher, welcome to Bootstrap Stories.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited about this conversation. But before we get started, I want to give an idea of what we're going to discuss in this episode. So in the first part, I want us to focus on the growth secrets that help you build $1 million business fully bootstrap. And since I also know that before Snappa, you've already had 3 other businesses that didn't go as planned, I want to find out your challenge and hard moments as an entrepreneur. And finally, after that, I want to see and know how you manage to stand out from the crowd. So let's not forget, that there are tons of other actors and competitors in your space. So I'm super curious to understand how you made a name of Snappa out there. Are you ready to start?
Let's do it.
How exactly, can you tell a bit more about the story of Snappa, how it got started, and how long have you been in the business for?
Yeah. So long story short, my co-founder and I, we had met. We both had day jobs in the government, and like a lot of people that are probably listening to this podcast, was just kind of getting bored of the daily grind. And I started, traveling and wanting to do a bit more of that, wanting to have more freedom in my life, all the kind of typical stuff that a lot of people happen when they kind of want to get into the bootstrapping game. And so we had basically started a bunch of projects, like you had alluded to in the intro. A couple of them, didn't work out, but we had learned a lot of valuable lessons from that. And then eventually we had a marketplace called Bootstrapped, and we were essentially selling Bootstrap themes and templates. And we got that up to about 5 to 10,000 in top line revenue. So we were generating a couple grand in profit, not enough to really live off and quit our job. But, getting that initial bit of traction gave us a bit of confidence and started to actually get a bit better at, content marketing, SEO, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually we, wanted to get into the SaaS business because we really liked recurring revenue, kind of had the idea for Snappa and, a few other things kind of that we lucked out along the way. And that enabled us to start Snappa. And we've been kind of running it ever since then.
That's really cool. I love the idea of, you're bored at your day job. You start a side hustle with someone like a co-founder is potentially, are you technical or is it your co-founder who's technical?
Yeah. So my co-founder is the technical. So he built the first version of Snappa, and I focused more on the marketing and growth side of things.
Awesome. Yeah, because I feel like, how exactly did you feel whenever you got like that first customers with your side hustle? Because for me, I think I remember the first day I was able to do to make money online was just crazy. I was like, it's actually possible, it can happen. So what was your feeling?
Yeah, it was a game changer. I still have like a mental image of seeing the PayPal notification come up that we had sold. It was like a $15 theme. But even though it was $15, it was like, oh my God, we made money online. It didn't take, I didn't have to trade my time in order to make this sale. And like you said, it just opens your eyes to the possibility that if you just kind of repeat this over and over again, it can be pretty exciting.
And I'm curious, like before we jump to Snappa and the growth, etc. Like with this side hustle, like how did you come up with the idea and how did you get started as being full-time employee?
Yeah. So at the time, I was actually reading a lot about drop shipping because that was pretty popular at the time. So I was in the frame of mind of, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of keyword research. I'm going to find some keyword for some type of good that I can, drop ship. And at the same time, again, I was kind of having discussions with my co-founder who was technical. And then we kind of stumbled across the keyword Bootstrap templates and Bootstrap themes. And so for the non-developers listening, Bootstrap is essentially a CSS framework. So it was akin to selling WordPress themes, it kind of similar to that, I would say. And we realized that there was a lot of search volume for Bootstrap themes because they were starting to get really popular. And there was really only one major player at the time. And even Theme Forest hadn't really focused on that specific category. And for us, it was even better than drop shipping because it was a complete, digital good. We didn't have to deal with, returns and all that kind of stuff. So that's how we kind of stumbled across that and decided that this is something that we should launch.
Nice. So you have this business making about a few grand in profit each month. When does the switch come from to, okay, let's go and build Snappa? Is it something where you said, we're going to build Snappa and we're going to start making money, and once we have enough money, we can quit our job? Or did you say like, okay, I'm going to go all in and just quit and be fully focused on the project?
Yeah, so we were running that site for about a year, and we were starting to kind of plateau. And even though there was kind of only that one major player, they just had all the network effects of a typical marketplace. And Theme Forest had started to come out with their own, categories for Bootstrap themes. And so it was just getting like super competitive. Obviously we were bootstrapped. We didn't have any sort of marketing budget. So we kind of knew that we had probably peaked at, how much money we're going to make from this business. And so we kind of knew that, from here it was going to be an uphill battle, and we kind of needed to figure out the next thing. And so kind of a bit of a fluke thing was we were doing a lot of content marketing for that site. That's pretty much how we grew it. And I had written a blog post about where to find free stock photos that ended up going viral. And so we were actually ranking on the first page of Google for free stock photos.
Nice.
And we were just getting a ton of traffic to this one blog post. And at the same time, because I'm a marketer, I'm not a designer, I had to, create all these images for our content marketing. And I was thinking like, man, there has to be a better way to do this for people that aren't, versed in Photoshop. So we kind of had this idea, I guess, for Snappa at that time. And then we also had this like blog post that was getting all this traffic for, where to find free stock photos. So what we actually did was we built our own free stock photo site called StockSnap. And that did really well and started getting a lot of traffic. And then from there, we realized that, we should build this graphic design tool. We had done a bit of customer development. And so when we launched Snappa, we had both this blog post and our own free stock photo site that we can kind of, direct that traffic to. And that's how we ended up starting it.
That's really cool. And revenue wise, did you like quit your job and jump into Snappa like at that time once you had like the stock photo and the traffic that was being driven thanks to like the good SEO and article that you wrote? Or did you just say like, okay, I'm going to wait until Snappa hits, I don't know, like 10K in MRR so I can get a bit of salary and then jump ship?
Yeah. So so I had taken a year leave of absence from work.
Okay.
And so, I kind of had, the absolute worst case scenario, I can just go back to my job. But without making the story too long, I was also in the middle of like an accounting designation as well. So I was kind of burning my bridges, but I had just got to the point where I just didn't want to work in the government anymore. And I felt like, if this fails, I'll just go work at like Shopify or something, which was like a hot startup in Ottawa where I was born and raised. So yeah, I was basically paying myself $1,500 a month, which is about kind of what we were doing in profit from the other business. I took a year leave of absence from work. And by the time my year was over, it was just around the time that we had launched Snappa, and we got pretty good traction right from the start. And so that was a bit relieving that like, okay, this thing has legs. I think I think this is going to work out. So that was
Nice.
kind of the timing of that. Yeah.
And before we jump into like Snappa's launch, the growth, the competitive market, you mentioned that having this side hustle and testing like new businesses were quite a source of learnings for you. So what would you say were like the 3 things that you would do differently if you had to start over again?
So I think the biggest issue the first business we ever launched was an online dating website for students.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like how Facebook started out, where in order to sign up on our site, you needed a school email address. And we actually got quite a few students in our local city. And, we actually got some good traction there. But the problem was we had a hard time scaling outside of our own city. And because we hadn't raised any funding, it was next to impossible to grow this. And so my biggest learning from that is you really have to know whether you're launching a VC-backed business or a bootstrap business. And if you're bootstrapping it, you really need money from day one, and you need a clear, monetization path from day one, which we didn't. We were like, we'll make money on ads, and you hear about Plenty of Fish making all this money, but Plenty of Fish is like the ultimate exception. There's so few bootstrap websites that are B2C that make enough money on ads to really make a full-fledged business. And so once we kind of learned that lesson, and we kind of made this same mistake twice, and so once we kind of learned that, I started to kind of go down the path of like, okay, this is how you actually bootstrap. You kind of need monetization from day one, build something that you can charge for, and then that's how we kind of got into Bootstrap Bay, and then followed by Snappa. So that was the main thing, is that if I did it all over again, I either would have tried to raise money from the start, if I was trying to go that path, or I would never launch a B2C business that is, can only monetize from ads and needing tons of traffic and tons of network effects and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do feel like I've started a B2C business. It was my first business with my dad, like t-shirt business, huge failure. And I feel like when you start bootstrapping in B2B, you would never go back to the B2C space ever again. It's such a different path. And let's go back. Like right now, you've started Snappa. It's the first day of Snappa. How do you get exactly like your first customers? Apart from that article that's converting really well, is there any other things that you've done in the early days that helped you to get first customers?
So the early days, that was the primary source. So what we did was as soon as we started writing code for Snappa, we threw up a landing page, and we were already driving traffic from both the blog posts that we had and the stock photo site. So by the time that we launched Snappa, it's been a while now, but I think we had about 5,000 people on our email list. Yes. So, from day one that we launched, send it out to the list. And so we already got, paying customers from that first week. And I would say really the first 6 months to a year, we were just really milking that lead gen from those two sources, and we were kind of optimizing things, trying to tweak things. So that was the major thing. And then once we were kind of 2-3 years into the business, we started layering on other kind of marketing channels. The big ones being SEO and content marketing. So that's what really took our growth kind of to the next level.
That's nice. And essentially, like, you're in a space that is very crowded. How do you stand out from day one? What's your strategy? Like, do you focus on niches, or do you say like, okay, I'm going to focus on a specific acquisition channel that no one else is using? Where do you go and how do you start?
Yeah. So in the beginning, the main thing was a lot of the competitors at the time were charging like like microtransactions. So if you want to use like a template, it was like an extra $1. If you wanted to use premium photos, an extra $1, whatever. So one of the differentiators that we had was just our business model, and that we had, a fairly limited free plan, but then on the pro plan, everything was free. All the templates were, there was no extra cost. So all the graphics, templates, whatever were included. We also had integrated with Buffer and other social media tools. So we were catering to that like online marketing kind of crowd as well, so that you can create your graphics, schedule them. Most people are kind of doing that now as well. And then the other thing was, to be honest, is just making it, as super easy to use as possible. And we focused only on online graphics. So we purposely didn't do print. Because in order to support print, there's like additional sizes, there's additional complexity. It kind of bogs down. A lot of the apps would get bogged down and stuff because you have to, render at higher quality and stuff like that. So for us, it was really just make it as easy as possible, and make it as fast as possible, and have a, very simple business model.
Oh, that's cool. And when did you hire your first employee?
I think it was around 6 months to a year after we started, I believe.
Okay. And who was that person, and where do you find him or her?
Yeah, the first employee was a developer. That was definitely like with the SaaS. I feel like most people, it's probably either going to be like a customer success or developer. So in our case, it was a developer. And we actually found him, believe it or not, on just posting on a local job board.
Okay.
Yeah, and we really lucked out. He's still with us to this day, and he's a phenomenal developer. So we definitely lucked out there.
Nice. That's really cool. And how many people are you right now in the team?
So we are, if you include my co-founder and I, it's 7 people. So we have 5 full-time employees. And we also work with like a freelance writer to help out with blog content.
Nice. So what has been the strategy to go from the first customers up to $1 million business?
Yeah. So the main strategy was really focusing and doubling down on content and SEO. So obviously Snappa is a very, low priced tool.
What's the price range? ARPU, what's your ARPU kind of thing?
Yeah. So basically our, on our pro plan, it's like $10 to $15 a month. So it's $15 a month, or if you sign up annually, it's $120 for the year. And the team plan is $30 a month or $240 for the year. So obviously for a tool like that, you don't have a ton of room to do paid acquisition and that kind of stuff. So, we focus primarily on SEO and content marketing. So, essentially on the content side, we've just wrote a lot of helpful evergreen content regarding, social media, graphics, and then on the SEO side, building out various landing pages to capture search volume for different use cases and different features that people are searching for.
So you really focused on that one acquisition channel that you really mastered, which was kind of like SEO. And then you just went hard on it and got like a lot of users. And I feel like with such a low price to kind of like a low ARPU, do you have any churn issue, or has churn been an issue in the years of growth?
Yeah, we don't have the best churn in the world, but it's not the worst churn in the world. I think, we benchmark pretty typical with a tool of our industry with that kind of price point. So, basically growth we've usually focused more on acquisition for growth than we have on lowering churn.
Okay. Yeah, it's more exciting. I feel like everyone's focusing, on acquisition just because if you're an entrepreneur, you want to keep looking forward. And I feel like focusing on churn sometimes feels like looking backward, and that's a bit less exciting. But is it something for you that whenever you're seeing growth, have you ever had a plateau, a bit like you had with the Bootstrapped theme? And because you've been working for so long on Snappa, it's have you ever had a plateau that you managed to kind of break and keep growing?
Yeah, we actually had a plateau around, I think it was a couple years into it. And that's when we really kind of doubled down on the content SEO and really started to like figure that out. And that helped us kind of break through that plateau, because we were relying a lot on that initial kind of lead gen source to bring in a lot of our traffic. So that was kind of the one thing. That was a kind of major one. And then with COVID, we had this like just monster run up in growth. And then we've actually kind of been, in a plateau right now, if you will, just because it seems like there's almost like a COVID hangover where there's so many people that, were starting online businesses and stuff like that. And that's kind of calmed down a bit. So this one is a bit tougher to deal with, just because I think if COVID hadn't happened, we kind of probably would have been at the same place we are now, but with just continue going up and to the right. Whereas right now, because we had that huge growth spurt, it's almost like
catching up and
really hard to like continue on that same growth trajectory.
And what's your feeling like whenever you're facing a plateau? Like, how do you spend time with your co-founders and say, okay, like there's something we want to do or we should do differently? Like, how do you fight it? What gets you motivated to break the plateau?
Yeah, I think so. Number one, like, so for example, like the initial plateau that we had experienced, we knew that like, we had to just, we needed additional channels and kind of an additional kind of growth loop, if you will. And so we knew that like that kind of plateau was something that we needed to kind of fix ourselves. And so it was just a matter of figuring out, okay, what channel makes most sense? What would she focus on? Kind of testing that out, doing that kind of stuff. This plateau is a bit more challenging in the sense that I think it's more to do somewhat on a macro level than it is on a micro level. But having said that, it might mean that, we need to figure out yet another channel, right? So maybe we're starting to get to the end of, or exhausting or seeing diminishing returns on, content and SEO. And now we kind of need to figure out the next thing. So yeah, it's just a matter of taking a step back, analyzing the situation, putting our heads together, see how we can kind of work through it.
Nice. And early on, you mentioned the difference between bootstrapping and VC funded startup. Knowing that you've been bootstrapped, meaning that you're running, I suppose, the business in a profitable manner. What's your goal for the next years? Is it like to raise money, do some secondary, or stay bootstrap as long as possible? What's your plan?
I feel like I never have the right answer to that. It just kind of changes all the time.
That's good also.
Yeah. I guess it's good to have options open. We're not completely sure. I mean, the one thing that I've always strived for was to get myself more and more out of the day-to-day operations. And I think we've been, really successful in doing that. We actually launched another side project recently in a kind of different industry, and we kind of had the free time and to kind of like do that as well. So
what's the side project about?
It's actually it's a Bitcoin dashboard. It's called bitbo.io. Been kind of getting into that quite a bit over.
We all have, I feel.
Yeah. So I think with Snappa, I think obviously we want to keep growing it and improving the product and whatnot. I think it would be tough for me this late in the game to raise money for this particular business, just because I feel like we have more to lose than we have to gain. A secondary is an interesting option. Like if we raise money at this point, I would definitely want to take some chips off the table. So that could be something that we explore.
Nice, that's interesting. And do you have a lot of like VC fund reach out to you, or in that pace it's too crowded? And
yeah, I mean it's pretty typical. It's a lot of it is just some junior guy at the firm, and
okay.
Hey, how's it going? Let's hop on a call kind of thing. So it's tough to know how much of it is super serious versus not. But Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of money flowing around in VC land these days. So I think if we wanted to raise money, we probably could.
You probably could, yeah.
Yeah.
And down the line, because it's been about 6 years now, down the line, like, did you thought about, I don't know, raising, or were you always thinking, you know what, like, we're profitable, we're paying ourselves good salary, like, I'm doing what I love, I just want to continue that route? Or down the line you thought, okay, maybe it's time now for us to raise? Especially, you know, when you were telling me that COVID kind of gave you like a huge boost at first. With that traction, did you feel at some point that you would need to raise or not?
I think part of it is founder fit as well. And if I think about, you know, my passions and kind of where I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't know if this particular business is one that I would want to raise money and dedicate the next 10 years of my life to. I'm not opposed to ever raising money or ever going VC. I don't know if it's the right fit for this particular business, especially since we've, you know, bootstrapped it for this long and it's very profitable. So yeah, I like to keep an open mind. I never like to say I never will, or I will for sure. I like to keep an open mind, but right now we're not looking to raise.
You go with the flow. That's cool. And what was for you like the toughest times in these 5 years?
Yeah. So the beginning was tough in the sense that, like every bootstrap business, there's just so many things to do and so few resources to get them done. So it was just challenging with the tech, having only one developer. So that was kind of, I would say the tech was really challenging in the early days. And, you know, when we like, web browsers aren't really meant to be graphic design tool, especially 6 years ago, like things have come away since then. So tech has always been a challenge. And then just getting as, you know, trying to get creative and you know, growing the business without having to rely on, you know, paid acquisition, you know, is always a challenge as well. And now it's just kind of figuring out, you know, positioning, differentiation when, like you alluded to, it's a very competitive space. There's a lot of competitors with deep pockets, and, you know, how we can kind of position ourselves within that.
Awesome. And what are the things that you would have done differently? That's always a tough question.
Yeah. I honestly don't know if we really would have done anything different. We kind of just, you know, I really feel like, you know, a lot of people say, well, I would have done X, Y, and Z differently. But in the moment, it's just so hard to know at that time that you would have done things differently. So yeah, I guess like if you go back to the beginning of my journey, I definitely would have probably not launched those first two businesses, or at least gone about them a different way. But I think Snappa has gone, you know, more or less as well as it had, you know, it could have gone, I guess.
Okay. And the new project, like the talking about Bitcoin and things like that, what's the goal with it? Like, do you feel like you can use Snappa to get kind of like the investment to start a new side project, and potentially the side project is going to get even bigger and you'll be able to launch it? Because I've seen a lot of SaaS founder actually like doing that. You know, they build like a $1 million+ per year like business, and then after that, you know, like it's profitable and they have enough resources to start side project, and at some point one side project just skyrocket and do even more revenue than the initial business, and then you can go all in on that. What's your feeling about it?
It's definitely something we'd consider. We've, you know, had some discussions about that. So that's definitely something we'll leave open. Not entirely sure yet. I will say, I think it would be difficult to kind of, well, maybe not to run the two in parallel, but I think if we do raise money for, you know, whether it's the side project or anything else, I think especially the founder or the, you know, the investors kind of want to know that that's like your 100% sole focus. So I think we'd probably have to make a choice at that time if you know, if we want to do that. But definitely something that's,
And what's a side project about? So you were mentioning about like Bitcoin dashboard. So is it just tracking the price of Bitcoin, or can it do like something else?
Yeah, so we're tracking the price as well as a lot of the on-chain metrics. So, not sure how familiar you are or your listeners, but because Bitcoin is obviously a public blockchain, you can measure things like what the hash rate is and how fast blocks are coming in, the supply schedule, what the fees are like. So we're basically tracking all of that data. So if you're making a transaction and you want to know what the fees are, you can kind of look at that stuff. And there's the thing that's really interesting about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is that the exchanges basically give out all of this information for free via like APIs, whereas in the traditional stock market, you would have to pay like tens of thousands of dollars just to get access to this data. So it's pretty awesome that on-chain metrics, you can basically run your own node and pull in those metrics, and then price and derivatives data from the exchanges are coming from APIs. So you can get all this data for free. And then, you have to obviously, you have hosting costs and whatnot, but you're not paying like $20,000 a month for some,
request or API.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's something that's really interesting about, the crypto space is the data, and we're, again, we're kind of exploring that and playing around and just kind of seeing what people are what kind of data people are looking for and how we can provide that type of data.
Do you have any paying customers so far on the project, or is this more like beta and exploration phase?
Yeah, we just launched it as like a free side project for now. We didn't really, at the time have any kind of grand aspirations of turning this into a business, but we're kind of starting to see some opportunities there if we do want to take it further and go in that direction. But if we did, I think we would make it some kind of freemium model where we give a certain amount of free data and have a free dashboard, but then have some sort of premium product that has like specialized data and additional features and functionality.
And you're always doing this with your co-founders. You're never involving like someone outside and on this project.
Yeah, it's just been my co-founder and I since the start. We obviously have a really good working relationship. We're pretty much like best friends now, and I think cool. trust is really important. When my wife always laughs that Mark is my second marriage. So.
And any hard time with co-founders, like we see, whenever you have like the ups and downs in business, can always affect the co-founders relationship. Were there any tough times between you two, or?
Again, I've been really lucky. you hear a lot about co-founder horror stories and stuff like that. I personally found that when we've had hard times, like for the business, that is, it's actually been helpful to have a co-founder and someone to, bounce ideas off of and kind of talk through problems and stuff like that. So, I've been very fortunate. We've had a good relationship.
No, that's cool. And I'm also curious, because you have this mindset of starting new projects even after they fail. And we see a lot of entrepreneurs, who might start a side project while they're on their day job. And then if the side project doesn't work out, they're just going to say, okay, I'm not worth being an entrepreneur. So what kept you grinding and kept you going after you launched your first business, like the dating site, for example?
Yeah. I think what kept me going was that I feel like in retrospect, I knew, so a couple of things. So number one, even though it wasn't like a business success, we had some traction. We actually had people signing up to the site. We actually had people using the site. I personally knew a bunch of people that actually, met people that they dated. So, even though it wasn't a financial success, we did get some traction. The act of just putting a product out there had people using it. We got written up in a lot of local newspaper and media. So at the time, I mean, that was like super exciting. And we thought we were on to the next thing. And like looking back, it's kind of funny, but
it's huge validation. Like when you get started and you have this type of validation, you're like, okay, like I want to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. It was validation that we were able to put out a product and get people to use it. And so from there, I was like, okay, number one, the issue was we weren't making any money. And number two, we couldn't, we had issues scaling outside of our city. So from there, it was like, okay, how do we solve these problems? So that's when I started learning a lot about online marketing and SEO and how to do content and, kind of bootstrapping and methodologies. And so I think the most important thing is to, if you're failing, understand why you're failing, apply those lessons into the next thing and keep trying to make incremental, improvements to each thing. I think a lot of people have tendency to, their thing fails and then, they kind of just, they have a hard time understanding why, and they'll blame external factors and they won't take the necessary steps to, make sure that doesn't happen for the next time. So I think just making any sort of progress and being consistent is super key.
Yeah, I love that because I think like if you can learn new things and just stop making the same mistakes over and over again, you're 100% sure that down the line, you have chances and much more chances to actually like succeed and launch something that will work. And I think like your story is really like everything makes sense. You had this B2C, then you went to learn like digital marketing. You started working on something with SEO opportunities. From there, you saw another opportunity with potentially like stock photos. Then you had your own pain and you decided to create a SaaS from it. And then Snappa was born. So that's pretty exciting. And talking about your co-founders a bit more, where exactly did you guys meet?
Yeah, so we actually met at work when we were working in the government. So it's funny because I was one of the youngest people in the office, and then one day this dude shows up from a temp help agency, and so because he was like the only person around my age, naturally we kind of met and we started kind of hanging out and whatever. And so the more we got to know each other, the more we realized we kind of had this, a similar interests and both kind of had aspirations to quit our jobs at some point and do something else. So yeah, that's how we met.
No, that's really cool. And when it comes to your team and the hiring process, you have like a small team. So how did you choose really carefully the person you hire? And second question, did you have to fire people down the line?
Yeah. So basically what we found works. And so number one, in terms of like the actual interviews, we focus really primarily on like culture fit. That obviously means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but we're all remote. So being able to work, independently, we're not micromanagers. So, we like working with people that, are really good about working autonomously. And, we're pretty laid back people. So, we like to have some fun and, people that can kind of let loose and whatnot. So we really screen for culture fit. And then what's been super valuable is sample projects. So the kind of interview, we really focus on, is this someone we actually want to work with? Do they have the kind of, culture fit and the qualities that, we think will make them successful here? And then the sample project, we really want to know, like, okay, do they actually know what they say they're going to know? Obviously, we ask some technical questions in the interview as well, but I find the sample projects have been really key in knowing if they're if they're actually good or not.
Can you dig in a bit more on this sample project? Like, how concretely does that work?
Yeah, so it depends obviously for the role. So if it's a developer, we'll give them a coding project. For our marketing and content person, we would ask them to, create different graphics to put on or to post on social media for our customer success. We'll write in like fake tickets and we'll ask them to respond. And what we do is we actually make these paid projects because I think it's unfair to ask, 4, 5, 6 hours of someone's time if, and not compensate them if they don't get the job. And similarly, I think if you're only doing a sample project that takes 30 minutes or an hour, it's not enough to really fully know how well they're going to do. So that's been our process, is to, give a sample project that, that can take, 4 or 5 hours and, pay them to do that. So even if they don't get the job, we don't feel like we've, wasted their time and treated them unfairly. So that's been, that's been the process that we work with. And funny enough, well, not funny, but the one person that we hired that didn't work out, we hadn't given that person a sample project because we were, so it was a classic mistake of, over indexing on past experiences. And, for this one particular role, there was like a customer success component of it, as well as kind of like a marketing and outreach and kind of thing. And so we were kind of, we just kind of assumed that this person would be good for the customer success. And we kind of over-indexed on the marketing stuff, only to realize that actually the customer success skills weren't what we needed to be. And had we given, the sample project that we ended up doing for the next one, we really would have caught that in the process as well. So it kind of further validated for us just how important some type of sample project is, regardless of the role.
I feel it's really tough, like whenever you have someone who has a really great experiences in the past, worked at like top companies, etc. Like especially if you do the outreach, to get them join your company, it's really, really tough to give them this type of task, because they would be like, I don't know, like you're coming, like sourcing me, chasing me, and now you want me to work. And that's tough, because in the end, I 100% agree with you. It's like you need to test people like before they start working. And if they're in marketing, as you said, like writing an article, like the way they structure things, you will see how people think. Like if they write, it's the best way, to have like an image of how people work, what's in their brain, how they structure things. But it's tough. I guess it's tough when you face with, I would say, higher level type of candidates.
Yeah, and if obviously it's kind of hard to do for some roles, but I really like the idea of having someone even freelance for a little bit. So, for example, our graphic designer, who she started out as just kind of a freelancer for us, and we liked her so much, and we worked so well with her that we ended up offering her a position, and we knew how she worked. We knew obviously how good her work was. And so, I mean, it's almost like an interview, right? Or an extended interview. So, I think that could work really well with developers, designers, writers, obviously. So yeah, like any type of trial that you can get or sample project is super key, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had like some really cool story as well, like at Empire with people we hired who were actually freelancers, and down the line they join as full-time. Again, like best way, as you said, like to know whether or not it's a fit and if it works out. I know I want to be cautious of your time, so we're getting kind of to the end, where I want to ask a few questions, few closing questions. The first one is, what would be like the biggest lesson in this 6 years of growing a bootstrap company?
Biggest lesson, I think, is, business and entrepreneurship has this massive compounding effect. And I think, on one hand, you can't guarantee success just because you work hard and you do a bunch of stuff. But I think there's really something to be said about, taking action and doing it consistently over a long period of time. And I've just always been blown away by, something that I did 3 years ago ended up, paying dividends 3 years down the line in ways that I could have never imagined. So I think that the quicker you take action, the quicker you get started, the more you'll thank yourself down the line.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think to bump up on what you said, something that's super important to understand is that revenue is a lagging indicator. So everything that you do right now might just have an impact in 3, 6 months, a year, and as you said, sometimes even 3 years. So really really cool tips. So let's finish up with 3 fire questions. What's your favorite book or podcast?
Oof. Oh, I can only pick one?
No, you can pick multiple. That's fine.
Yeah. So for podcasts for this audience, I think Startups for the Rest of Us is really good. Indie Hackers is really good. Lately, I've actually been really enjoying My First Million. It's pretty entertaining, and I find it just kind of gets the creative juices flowing. So I'd say those are some podcasts I really enjoy. Books. For kind of marketing and startup stuff, I like Traction by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares, especially for people that haven't really done a lot of work on the marketing front. And this may be cheesy, but one of the first business books I really read was the Steve Jobs biography.
Nice.
And I just remember being so inspired by what one person was able to create and will into existence. And so I think that book will always have a special place for me, just in terms of the inspiration and kind of getting me started on my journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like we all have this either one book or one article that gets us started and got us inspired. And who's your favorite Bootstrap founder and why?
Probably Rob Walling. I mean, he's an OG. Yeah. I've been listening to his podcast for ages. I've gone to a couple MicroConf. I just think he's such a genuine guy. He's just kind of he really practices what he preaches. He's just been very consistent, and just seeing his growth over the years from selling beach towels to launching a bootstrap accelerator has been really impressive.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude, and it's funny because I recorded an episode with him a few weeks back.
Nice. I'll make sure to listen to that one.
And what's kind of your favorite thing to regain energy and motivation during the tough times?
I'm a huge fan of walks. I do a lot of walking, or just going to the beach, just getting in the sun, getting outdoors, going to the gym. I find that's always for me anytime I'm up against a wall or having a rough day I just go for a walk, go to the gym or go to the beach.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Christopher, thanks a lot. It was really a great and cool chat. Tons of learnings. Where do people can follow your journey and potentially get in touch with you as well?
Best place is probably just to follow me on Twitter. My handle is cgimmer.
Awesome. We'll put the link down in the comments. Do you want to add anything for our audience?
No, this was fun. I also have a personal website at chrisgimmer.com. Haven't written an article in a while, which I probably should, but there's a couple posts that might be helpful.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Christopher. Have an amazing day and talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was fun.